Welcome to You Are Intuitive, a refreshing series of interviews that features candid, intimate, and grounded conversations about developing and using intuition in the real world. I am Dana Mahachek, and my guest today is Dr. Divi Chandna. Dr. Divi has been a family doctor for 20 years and is the founder of the Center of Mind, Body, Spirit Medicine in Vancouver, BC. She is also an author, international speaker, and gifted teacher. In her many years working as a family doctor, Dr. Divi started to understand more about the true nature of health and well-being. She began to realize that despite what she had been taught in school, dis-ease was not only located in the physical body, but it was also connected to many other factors, including the mental, emotional, and energetic states of her patients. Using this knowledge and her gifts of intuition, Dr. Divi began to help people rebalance and self-heal using a holistic mind-body-spirit approach. Today, in addition to running her private medical practice, she also offers incredible medical intuitive readings, popular self-help and self-healing workshops, as well as certification courses in mind-body-spirit coaching. Dr. Divi is a world-recognized teacher and healer in this field, and I am absolutely stoked to speak with her today about all things intuition. Please enjoy this conversation, and thank you so much for being here. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Divi, for being here with me today. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you about intuition.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here too.
And something that I just want to mention to the people who are watching this or listening to it, your story, Divi, was actually one of the catalysts in me opening up to myself as an intuitive being and to kind of opening this door just to the possibility that I was intuitive. And when I first heard your story, I was like, if this medical doctor, who's now this like an incredible, also an amazing medical intuitive, if she didn't know that, I like is that like traffic on your end?
I think so. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. But I was thinking if she didn't know she was intuitive or didn't practice intuition until her mid-30s, maybe I could be intuitive too, or maybe it's a possibility for me as well. I'll just let the...
Yeah, that's actually quite funny, actually.
I know. There's actually an excavator near this house here, so it sounds like it's gone now though. So I was wondering if you would be able to share a little bit about your story and your experiences, who you were before you knew yourself as intuitive.
Sure. Thank you for that, by the way. I didn't know that, so thank you. So yeah, I mean, I was 19, I got into medical school. I'm a normal East Indian woman who parents immigrated, kind of that story, which I think we've all heard or have friends who've heard that story. And, became a doctor quite young and always had gut feelings about things, but never knew if I should follow them or not. And I think everybody has gut feelings. And then after my own personal journey, which involved sickness, health, ended up practicing a lot of yoga, ended up teaching yoga, ended up running a yoga studio, practicing yoga all the time. And then that started to wake up my own intuitive gifts. But in terms of that woman before, she's still in me. I mean, just like anybody trying to survive life, looking for happiness. I mean, like anyone else, I always thought, okay, when I'm 25, I'll be happy. I'll be a doctor by then. Oh, when I'm 28, I'll be happy. I'll be married then. When I'm, and so it was no different. The only difference was that I wouldn't say I wasn't as happy. Back then I was always finding outside things that would make me happy. Mm-hmm. Right. So So yeah, I remember her, and I'm sure she was highly intuitive, but she just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And was it, because I also have, like, I'm obviously not a doctor, but I have a very academic background.
Yeah.
And for me, I think maybe when I was really young, I must have made some kind of subconscious decision that it was safer or it was easier to just be smart and to just be in my mind rather than, feeling my emotions or consciously processing a lot of this energetic data I was receiving from other people around me. I was probably really young when I was just like, I don't know about this. I'm just going to zip up here into my mind and stay there for a little while. Did you have a similar experience from when you were like a young person trying to navigate this like emotional territory and being like, actually, I think I'm just going to go up here for a bit?
I think it's awesome that you might have had a choice. For my own experience, I didn't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you're parents of immigrants, where there was a lot of fear, because when I was growing up, there was a lot of racism.
Mm-hmm.
So the way to get ahead from racism was to get educated.
Yeah.
And to get educated is to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know that I had a choice. Being the youngest of four, I would just watch what everyone else did.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we're all doctors. Two of us are PhDs and two of us are MDs.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't a conscious choice ever.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was just what I did. And I think for the majority of people, it is just a default switch that they go to because of either society, school, teachers. I mean, I'm raising a kid. I have a 12-year-old son. He knows what I do for work. But, it's safer to put on the hat of mathematics and like 2 + 6 is 8 versus kind of the gray zone. So it's even watching him, never ever saying that wasn't safe. I can see how he's put on a hat of, no, this is safer. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah. And I wouldn't say for myself that I was consciously like, there's this choice or this choice, I'm going to go this way. But I think just my experience of being just highly sensitive to people's feelings and to energies and not really knowing what to do with it or how to process that, and not seeing it modeled in my family or at school. It just wasn't really a thing the way that 2 + 6 = 8 was. So I went into that default mode myself, and it took decades to kind of toggle back into my heart or back into my body, back into feeling and having it be safe and okay and possible for me to actually make that switch going down. Can you speak a little bit more about your experience with illness and with your own kind of your journey of suffering?
Sure. So I was 25 when I became a physician, and I was a family doctor, and so I'd go patient to patient to patient, and I always like be careful what you ask for. I started to wonder why people get sick, right? Because none of the stuff I'd studied in medical school actually made a lot of sense clinically, like it did and it didn't, right? And we're taught that, well, you give this medication, the patient gets better. But they didn't. I mean, they would get better a little bit, but they would keep coming back, right? And you don't hear about the coming back in your medical school. And so practicality was different than what I had been taught. So I started to ask myself that question. I was about 28, and my body started to hurt a lot. And at first, I just thought it was repetitive use injuries because I was training for triathlons and stuff like that then. I was running marathons. I was doing all kinds of stuff. And I thought it was just kind of repetitive strain, and stretching and routine stuff should help, which would help like this much, but the pain was this much and would just keep growing. Yeah. So it started off with chronic pain, and basically everything hurt, from my toes to my back to my knees to everything hurt. Mm-hmm. And then it moved into basically depression because there was sadness because I was really struggling to exercise, which was then causing weight issues. So I was in that cycle.
Yeah.
And then it became food allergies. So I became really intolerant to gluten. It was before anyone knew what gluten was. It was like 20 years ago, right? And so then there was that. And so no one understood that when I ate wheat, my body would explode. Like people didn't understand that. And then I got allergic to strawberries, just yummy fruit. And then the next thing I knew, I was getting infections all the time. So I was getting like yeast infections, bladder infections, colds, but they were like cycling. So before I knew it, I was taking painkillers, birth control, so I would get pregnant, antibiotics, antihistamines, just to make it through a day, let alone coffee and wine to kind of top it all off. So I was 28 with all of these maladies going on, nothing that was deathly, but things that were bad enough that it would make my personal life experience hard.
Yeah.
Like day-to-day life experience. So then my journey to wellness was, you know, I didn't spend much time in the medical model because I knew the medical model wouldn't fix it. Like I was already working in, I knew there was nothing. So I didn't spend time there just because I kind of knew that. So I started to explore other things, started with things like physio, massage, acupuncture, chiropractor, which back then acupuncture was still really new, right? I started to develop really severe PMS, like severe emotional swings, where I want to kill my ex-husband over like half of the month, things like that, like literal, like, you know, and and then that led to kind of behavior that I didn't understand, right? So anyways, and then literally ended up in a yoga class, which again, 18 years ago now, there were 2 yoga studios in Vancouver, which if you live in Vancouver now, it's like, what? You know, there's one on every block.
Corner, yeah.
Exactly. So, so I didn't fall in love with yoga, but I would get temporary relief from yoga in my mind. And then that led into my body. And it was gradual, it was slow. It didn't happen overnight. It probably took a year or two. But it was the only thing in a 24-hour period where I would feel temporarily better. So if you're going to get that much relief, whether it be from Tylenol or oxycodone or yoga class, it didn't fix it, but it felt temporarily better. So I kept going back. And then that got me to meditation, that got me here. And so the pain was literally emotion that just wanted to get unraveled. So in that journey, a lot of journaling, a lot of coaching, a lot of counseling, a lot of those kinds of approaches to kind of unravel the anger and sadness and guilt and fear that was trapped in there, which I didn't know was trapped. So, yeah.
And when you started to, I guess, experience intuitive insights, what were those like for you? Or what was it, what was actually starting to come through that meditation practice and through that yoga practice?
Right. It was just like knowing, something as simple as, like, I was running a yoga business on the island, and something simple like, oh, so-and-so is going to quit, and so-and-so never had been with us for 5 years. Why would she quit? Then sure enough, she would quit. Like things like that. And they were like small things that were real, or I would just know, you know, to not go that way on a road and go that way instead. Like it was just like knowings I was trusting. I wasn't even knowing that, but they were like small and big things, nothing cataclysmic, but they were just kind of knowings that were starting. Yeah.
And what was that like for you? Like, did some of them, like, did you listen to all of them, or did you trust all of them, or did you still have this kind of skepticism, like, I don't know what that means or where this is coming from?
Well, a lot of them, especially at first, the ones that I kind of remember right now as we're talking, weren't ones that I really had to pay attention to. It was more like, oh, by the way, such and such is going to happen. I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, sure, whatever. But, you know, there were a few ones that I look back and go, well, maybe I should listen to that one. But, you know, you did. But it's not that I didn't listen because I doubted it. I was just like, whatever. Like it was more like that. And then I started to kind of, as the ones that didn't matter as much started to get more prevalent, I started to listen to it more.
And was that something that you struggled with at all, to like integrate into your professional life, your professional practice, or like in your family life? Was it something that was kind of, did it seem weird, or did it seem kind of crazy to you? Or was it something you felt you maybe needed to hide from other people or downplay?
Not really. I mean, I was 35, 34. And no, I mean, don't forget, I was already a yoga teacher. It's already weird. So, I mean, it's already a weirdo living in the house. So, and I was already married to a partner, my second partner, who completely supported whatever his weird wife does. Yeah. So I didn't have to, but I would downplay it, say my family of origin, or in, you know, certain, you know, life events, but not anything that in that life that I was living in my mid-30s, I had to, you know, think about. So yeah, I was lucky in that way that I didn't go through phases where I had to downplay it.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of, well, in my own experience too, it's not that I had to downplay it, but I perceived that certain people might not accept me being intuitive, because my family, not my nuclear family, but my extended family was and is quite religious, and I didn't want to kind of come out of the intuitive closet and be branded as a witch or as
Right.
evil or as like someone who is trying to take the place of God, which was wrong and bad. And yeah, just depending on how people are, how they grew up or where they are at in their life when they come to understand themselves as intuitive, it may or may not be something that's like, I don't know if I really want to like make an announcement to this part of my world or this part of my life. But in your experience at that point, it was mostly just like, this is cool.
Yeah, I mean, my nuclear family that I grew up with, they don't live near here. When I visit them, I don't really tell them what I do. It's easier that way. So in that way, yeah, for sure. But I also have the luxury of not living near them, so it's not an issue on a day-to-day basis. So of course, if they lived here, it would be a completely different question. So yeah, I know, I just had that luxury.
Yeah, and also too, because you were in your mid-30s when it happened, it's not like you're 18 and still living at home.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
And have to worry about any kind of repercussions that way.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you incorporate intuition into your professional practice, or do you?
Right. So you mean in terms of medicine, is that what you mean?
Yeah, in terms of medicine, yeah.
So right now, I've hopped between different types of medical jobs, and I've even considered leaving. But I currently have a job in medicine where I have an online job with a company, and so I don't have to actually work with patients actually in person. I meet them on Skype or whatever service it is, and they're very much directed appointments for what this service is all about. So I actually don't have to use a lot of it in there. And I just trust it. Like if I get the sense to say X, Y, Z, I just say it. Like I don't think, but don't forget, as a doctor in the doctor hat, you kind of have that leeway and flexibility to say things. So if I get the sense to say, have you ever tried yoga? I'll say it, and no one thinks twice about it, especially nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have that issue in my current role as a physician. I mean, my other business, which is, I mean, that's where I wear the intuitive hat all the time. That's what people come to see me for. So it's not an issue. So right now in my current professional world, I haven't had an issue. So yeah.
Did you struggle with it at all before? Because I know before you were seeing patients one-on-one, and was there a process of like, how intuitive can I be, or how much should I be adhering to this medical model that I was trained in and I'm certified in? Was there any kind of navigational issues with that?
That part of my business career. So go back then. I won't lie, it was tough. Predominantly because in that time in my life, I had my medical practice, but I was also building my intuitive business in the same physical structure. And patients that would come in for the medical model kind of knew I did something else, and kind of, but as a physician, even when we're in the medical model, we use a lot of intuition. With the questions we ask, it's not just a computer. We use a lot of intuition. But a lot of the patients in the medical model kind of knew I did something here. And so they would generally try to ask me things over here, but it had to be very like, no. And, that's actually kind of why I had to split them, was because I can't actually continue, right?
Yeah.
Like, patients would say, okay, Dr. Divi, my back hurts. Okay, well, we'll do the medical approach, which is X, Y, and Z, do an X-ray, physio, massage. Patients who knew I did this would say, well, what else do you think it might be? And I'd be like, well, that's
separate.
Not exactly. And so that was definitely tough. I'm not going to lie. And then that led me to leave that part of medicine. That left me to leave that job, so to speak, and to do more of what I'm doing right now. But yeah, it was tough, because also when, I'm a big believer, as you probably know, of not pushing against anything. So you push against it to make bigger. I think the medical model is great for what it offers for patients who are looking for it. Awesome. But the issue is I'm trained in XYZ. That's what I'm trained in. I'm not trained to give them emotional intuitive advice. I've got to really separate them. So it was tough for, anyone listening that has that journey of overlapping careers. It can be tough. You have to make a decision. Yeah.
Yeah. And just touching on this idea of intuition as a career? Because I know a lot of people, when they're starting out, there's this kind of misperception that in order to be like a real intuitive or a good intuitive, you have to have a professional intuitive practice and people have to pay you to come for readings, and that it should be like 100% of your income stream. Otherwise, you're not very good or you failed at that. For people who are kind of starting on this intuitive path and maybe feeling like part of their calling is to offer intuition as a service to people, what sort of what would you recommend for people right at the beginning, or what kind of reassurance or advice could you offer them?
I think my biggest thing I would tell people, honestly, is to get training. I've done 3 intuitive courses. We teach intuitive courses at the center. Because training is a muscle. I mean, even the best intuitives have an 85 to 90% statistic. No one's 100%, right,
Yeah.
of accuracy. So to build that 85 to 90%, 85, 90% is awesome if you're a basketball player. Awesome. So it's great, you know? But what happens is with intuition, one of the reasons people shoot themselves in the foot, I was actually ironically working with a client yesterday who's working on his intuition. And I said, and we're playing this game. And I said, well, tell me what you think my aura color is. And so he said, right away, light blue. And then I said, okay. And he said, well, let me check again. So he closed his eyes and he started to think about it. He goes, I'm not seeing anything, Divi. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to use his name.
Yeah.
I was like, you got to trust that first thing, because it was blue. And it was the color I was projecting, so you could see it. And but then his mind kicked in. So the reason for intuitive training is so that you can recognize when your mind's kicking in versus what is the voice. So that's the first thing I would say. Second I would say is, I think it's complete hocus pocus that you've got to make 100% of your income, la 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 la.
Yeah.
Because it is just a muscle, right? It's a muscle, and definitely the more you use it, the more comfortable you are with it. But I think, that whole hocus pocus is just your saboteur saying, you're not making 100% of this, da 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 da. But that's why I'm a big believer in like courses and practicing, because that's where the muscle is built, and that's where you start to stop the mind that says you can't do this. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
What kind of courses did you take personally to develop those intuitive muscles for yourself?
So I took 3. The first one was actually a local training in Victoria, which is ironic, with a woman who was there. Then my second one was with Doreen Virtue, who most people have probably heard of.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the angel bucks. So I took her course in Hawaii. I don't think she offers it anymore. It used to be called Angel Therapy Practitioner, ATP. So I took that one. And the third one I took was a medical intuition course here in Vancouver that's offered. It's a year-long course. And then after that, I started training with a woman called Lynette Brown, who's my business intuitive coach. And so she teaches intuition courses. So she taught a course for our center recently. And so I sat through that because I was helping her host her and running it with her. So that was I wouldn't call it me taking that course because I'm hosting it. Mm-hmm. So the fourth one, but those are the 3 I've taken. And then after that, it's just building the muscle. And I think also working with my coach who does it professionally has been a huge bonus too, because I'm always kind of checking in, Yeah. So yeah, those are the courses I've taken.
Mm-hmm. And it is true what you're saying about it being a muscle, and it needs to be flexed. You need to actually practice it. And I found too in my journey that my beginning part, it was kind of like I was taking all these supplements, like I was reading books and I was like absorbing all this knowledge, but you can't get fit without actually going to the gym or like actually like doing the exercises. So for me, a big part of developing the muscles was actually, starting to offer practice readings to people and actually putting intuition into action rather than just like absorbing more knowledge or even taking more courses. Because I worked with a woman one-on-one to develop and kind of hone my intuition, like a mentorship. And then I also took it was a clairvoyance mastery class or something online. But I found that those served me to a point, but if I didn't actually do anything with those concepts or with that information, then it was just like I was downing protein shakes and not actually like going through the motions of being intuitive.
100%. It's a great analogy. And you're right. I mean, the practice is everything, right? And for me, the reason for courses is because even like that client I told you about, you see something and then you doubt it.
Yeah.
And the doubting is the biggest thing, right? The doubting is what makes it. And I agree with you. Everyone is intuitive. To me, everyone has gut feelings. Everyone does. And the courses, like you're 100% right. People can take 20 courses and never practice. And that's kind of like, huh? You know, but practicing, I completely agree, is the biggest thing. But the one thing I might add here that I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, I don't know if I said this story like 3 times in the last 3 days, because I did a couple interviews in the last few days too, but I'll say it again. So I took Doreen Virtue's course, which was called Angel Therapy Practitioner back then in Hawaii. And I think the course was $5,000, $6,000, something like that. And then it was in Hawaii, so I'd fly to Hawaii and get accommodation. So the whole thing, by the time I actually landed there, was about $8,000 or so, something like that. So I get to Hawaii, I'm in this room full of like so many people, hundreds of people. And she gets on stage and the first thing out of her mouth was, I can't teach you to be intuitive. And I'm like, I want to strangle you. I just spent $8,000 to be here. And what she went on to say, and that was so funny, is that if you're called to be here, you're already meditating, which was true. And you're already receiving guidance, which is true. But what I'm going to do over the next 4 or 5 days is I'm going to teach you how to harness that guidance that you're getting and actually put it into words. And so if anyone wants to take on intuition, that prerequisite of meditation is I would say 100%, not necessary, but it's completely a part of intuition.
Yeah.
So so I just think that's the funniest story. I was like,
like, Doreen, right?
Totally, yeah.
And one of the other people I was speaking with in this series was saying the same thing. He went for like a psychic development course, and the first thing out of his teacher's mouth was, I can't teach you how to be intuitive or how to be psychic, but I can teach you how to trust and how not to second guess and how to turn down the volume on that doubting, skeptical ego voice that, again, for me goes back to the academic model where it's like there's one correct answer. And if you get that answer, you get an A. And if you don't get that answer, then it's wrong and you fail, right? So the courses and the training and the practice has just helped me realize that there are so many shades of gray with it. Intuition isn't just like hitting a bullseye and only a bullseye. Many things can actually be that bullseye.
Huge. Really well said. I completely agree with you. Completely. Yeah, it's crazy.
And now in your, I guess, day-to-day life, how does intuition show up for you? Is it still mostly knowings, or do you have like visions or clairaudience or clairsentience? What's the biggest way that intuition shows up for you?
My 2 big ones are clairsentience and clairvoyance, and I do get claircognizance a lot. I don't use it as much because probably like you, I'm a thinker, so great, more claircognizance. Clairaudience is my least. I only get that in emergency situations. So, but definitely clairsentience and clairvoyance, and I try to use more clairvoyance because the sentience gets tiring. So like to feel everything is like, oh God. But so I've always asked the guys to turn up the volume, switch to the vision more than the feeling. So I mean, those are my 2 big ones. So I get them all the time.
You brought up a super interesting point that I would like to dive into a little bit more. Asking your guides to turn up the volume on the visions. Can you speak a little bit more about like how you as an intuitive being and how anyone as an intuitive being can actually like direct and request and ask for things to be a certain way?
Oh yeah, I mean that's
like, that's obvious.
That's like of course. So it's the difference between the concept of things happening to you or you having conscious control.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say 2 things here. I'll see if they land. First one I'm getting is you actually are divine consciousness. You are the not controller, but the leader of the experience. So all you have to do is ask, and it's immediately given. But to ask, a lot of people like, the people actually ask me when I mean, I do intuition, but I also do coaching. So I put the two together.
Yes.
So I'm always, and people are like, how many questions do you ask for everything coming in your mouth? I'm like, literally 5 or 10 go up here, and then one thing comes out of my mouth. And that's actually quite funny, because you can just ask and it's instantly given, instantly. So even when I'm working with clients, and a lot of clients come to see me for coaching with their health, their relationships, and intuition is just a process I use. Yeah. But they love the intuition. So because their mom will come in, or the deceased loved one will come, whatever happens. But the process I'm teaching them is the one that they're going to benefit from the most because of what the guides are giving me. But if you really just trust that it's given, and see, what a lot of people do is they'll ask, they'll be like, well, where's the answer? If you stop asking, the answer's there. Mm-hmm. Like if you just know it's given, so turn up the volume on this person's aura color, and immediately it'll be given to you. It's like, done. Right? But the mind is like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And that mind looking is where you can't see it. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, it's like the seeking process kind of obscures the answer, or what's actually already in front of you.
Right. Because the seeking is still thinking from a lack place, that there's something wrong. There's fear, right? But
or something missing.
Exactly. A doubt. Mm-hmm. And so, but it is given. And so a lot of the intuition courses, like that guy you were speaking about, that's like learning to trust. Mm-hmm. That yes, it's here. Yeah. And as you know, that's a huge part of people who are setting up intuitive practices, trusting the divine.
Yeah. Constant practice of trusting, and trusting again, and choosing to trust again, and choosing to trust again. But I bring that up, and I asked you to expand on that a little bit more, because there is a sense, like if people are becoming intuitive, that it is something that is perceived as like outside coming in, and that you're just kind of this passive receptacle for insights or knowledge that are kind of outside of you. But then having the ability and the choice to ask questions, or to like reframe or repeat the question, or whatever it is, it's giving a little bit more agency and recognizing that you actually are co-creating this. It's not just something that you don't have, that you need to receive from outside of you, right? It's putting you back in the driver's seat a little bit more.
Completely. I think that's what got me into coaching plus intuition, because of exactly what you just said. And I've never actually worded it, so you worded it really beautifully. Because with coaching, you're like, the client comes in and say they have troubles in their relationships, just say. And your mind, like if you ask your mind, you'll be here out, like forget it. So if you ask, okay, how can I be of highest and greatest good and service of love to the divine client who's sitting in front of me? Mm-hmm. You'll get the message, and you'll ask a question, and it feeds back, and then it's this like constant conversation, and it's so of unearthly divine energy. And what people always say when they leave my sessions, I'm sure the same with you, they like feel 20 pounds lighter, and they have tools to go home with and like actually practice this. So it's putting them in concert with their own divine. So It's not about coming to us for answers.
No,
we're just guides.
Yeah.
So as you're just a guide for the next person. So
yeah. And I found earlier on, because for me it was actually like, it was this novel, surprising piece of information that I could actually ask questions, and that I could either like ask for clarification, or ask for like a deeper layer to that, that I could do that. I was just like, who knew? I didn't realize. I thought it was just like, here is this like breadcrumb bestowed upon you, and that's it. Like that's all you can get. But you can, when you're developing your intuition and when you're using your intuition, you can like see the breadcrumb from a different perspective, or you can like go inside the breadcrumb, or you can ask for more information about the breadcrumb, and it becomes this like this playful banter, I almost feel like, between myself as a human and guides or spirit or source or whatever you want to call that energy field. It can become more of like a play or a game or an exchange, rather than you being like the orphan who's like, please sir, can I have some? And then energy or source going like, here's this little portion for you, and that's all you get.
Really well said, and that's exactly it. And that's one thing I remember about not all the trainings I've done, but a lot of them is just like, just ask. And the biggest thing for anyone starting an intuition business is to actually say, how can I be of service, highest service for this divine being sitting in front of me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's really, and that's a question, how and what,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just love that's immersed in your session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself still, I guess, slipping back up into the mind and slipping into this analytical needing to plan and strategize and like have everything prepared in advance? Is that something that you still deal with?
Do you mean in my sessions or in my life?
Both, in your sessions or in your life.
You're so cute. I'm like, separate the two. I can't. No, it's impossible. It's impossible to do in sessions because the sessions are not mine. They're led by the divine completely. Mm-hmm. In my life, I try to do that, but I'm a mom. I've got a kid. Yeah. No, I joke. It's a balance between that and X, Y, Z. But it's the dance, the balance. And so, so a little bit of both in my life, more now than before about letting go. But there's also the like, okay, well, it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I haven't eaten yet kind of thing, because that's who I can be. Yeah. So it's the dance, it's the balance.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I was finding when I was first kind of getting out there and offering intuitive services, that I still had this, like, my mind wanted to not necessarily plan how it was going to go, but I wanted to be as prepared as possible. So sometimes before I would go into a session, I would be like reading all the books or like reading notes I had taken from some energy medicine thing that I was like, it was almost like I was studying for a test going into the session.
Right.
And it's only been over time that I've realized kind of the least amount of preparation makes for the best sessions.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Oh my God, I'm never prepared, ever. I would completely agree. Because if you're coming from your left brain and thinking of what you want to do, you've lost the boat. So in the sessions that I tend to do, I'll get the guidance, teach X, Y, Z, and I've taught X, Y, Z thousands of times. So it's super easy, but it's not something I have to even think about. Like, it's like, that's sort of simple. And so, it's a great point. You can't prepare for it. Just like you can't prepare for a gut feeling. It just occurs.
Yeah. But it was something that I noticed at the beginning that I was like, I wanted to be, I wanted to have all the resources like at my fingertips, and was still learning to trust that like whatever I needed would be given to me in the session, even if I didn't. Sometimes in a session, something comes through that I didn't actually know before.
Yeah.
But then because I needed to know that and I needed to communicate that to that person at that time, it comes. But it was definitely a process and a practice of like, okay, I don't have to have like a speech written out on paper beforehand, and I don't have to have like a bibliography to refer to if I was needing to like direct people to certain resources or things that they might want to look into. That was, I would say, probably one of my own biggest practices has been learning to like relinquish that academic side that was like always prepared for the tests and was always ready in case there was a pop quiz. Just like learning to relax a little bit with that and not just trusting that it was going to go well, but actually seeing and witnessing the difference between me going in prepared from this really left brain side versus me just going in and trusting and like rolling with whatever came through.
And what I always find is that, say the session is at 9:30, let's just say, everything leading up to 9:30 is the session. Do you know what I mean? So like it's like you'll get hits the night before, or you'll read something, or it's everything. So this morning I had a client at, I think it was 8 o'clock this morning. I was picking up a cup of tea from the bakery across the street, coming in for about 10 to 8, or 8 o'clock too early. So and she was waiting outside. She's a bit of an early bird, so she was waiting for me, which is cool. She had a Starbucks cup. I had my Mon Pop cup of tea, and so we started talking about our drinks. And she's a regular client, so I know her quite well. Don't know her that well though, right? So we're just talking, and I was opening up and unlocking, and we're just chatting as I was doing this. And that was actually a theme through the session, was about her coffee and about, like planning. And it's interesting because the session started before I even got there.
Yeah.
And so I find it fascinating how if you let go of control, it's like you said, the best session.
Yeah.
Not that there's good or bad, you know what I mean, or better or worse. It's just like,
no, but
amazing.
It unfolds in ways that you could have never predicted. You could have never orchestrated. Like you couldn't have made it feel that resonant or like hit that soul nerve in somebody if you were coming from the left brain, compared to just winging it. I'm always joking. I'm like flying by the seat of my pants on everything now, which is foreign for me. Like it's completely the opposite of the way that I like trained and honed myself for 20 years of my life throughout school.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's why, that's why a lot of intuitives don't start their work as businesses until they're in their 30s or 40s or 50s. Because it takes time. And that's cool. You got the rest of your life. But the coolest thing about an intuitive practice is that you can do it until you're dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it actually gets better with age. So
like a fine wine.
Exactly.
So if people were just starting out on their own, not even necessarily like I feel called to do this as a practice, but like I feel called to just know myself as intuitive, or to connect with my intuition and to build those inner trust muscles. Are there specific practices or resources or experiences that you could recommend for people just starting out?
100%. Obviously meditate. There's a lot of audio journeys on, meeting your wise guide, those kinds of things, practicing things like that. Noticing synchronicities, things like that. Just think what else I want to say. Knowing that there's more going on than that which we physically can actually tactilely touch. Like almost imagine that we just had a solar eclipse. So when people watch this, it was recently after that. That kind of energy is always happening.
Yeah.
Right. And so being open to serendipitous events and open to all kinds of things. So yeah, I just tell people meditate, get open to stuff, and see what happens.
Yeah. And I like the suggestion too, because almost everybody I've spoken with so far has been like, cultivate a meditation practice, like go within, find a way to still your mind and just literally connect with yourself. And I also appreciate the suggestion to notice synchronicities, because even just the awareness of it, like actually directing your conscious attention to the fact that something serendipitous or synchronistic happened, it's like it unlocks a little part of you that opens you up for even more of that to happen. And something that came through in a lot of the sessions that I was giving was almost to like create your own running commentary in your brain to like remind your mind, this is happening. Magic is everywhere. Like energy is amazing, but sometimes the conscious thinking mind just needs to be reminded of that. So actually like pointing to things, or keeping a list or a journal of like magical instances in my life, that is a practice, and that starts to build those intuitive muscles simply by being aware of what's already happening in your life.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it really is just continuing and doing it over and over and over again. Yeah, completely agreed. Yeah.
And also something that just came through when I was saying that is not needing the synchronicity or the magic to be this like huge parade fanfare kind of thing, that starting with the really small, obvious, simple things, because that's magic too, and that's intuition too. Because part of my own journey was I had been writing off and discrediting and dismissing all of the ways that like I was being intuitive, or all of the ways that magic was showing up in my life. And it wasn't until I started counting these things as intuitive and qualifying them as like, okay, this counts as magic, that things really started to accelerate and take off with that.
Because it increases, that's an amazing, it's really well said. It increases our awareness of the beauty and the divine and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what this is all about. It's like the divine showing up.
Yeah.
And so it's everywhere, everywhere.
And there's that saying, like where your attention, I always get it wrong, but like where your attention goes, energy grows, or something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever you're focusing on expands.
Exactly. And that's so true. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy, eh? No.
Well, thank you so much
You're
for
so
sharing
welcome.
your experiences.
You're
and
so welcome.
Offering your perspective. Like I say, your story was like, if Divi can do it, maybe I can too. So I'm glad that other people get to hear about your experiences as well.
Thank you. That's so sweet. I'm so happy to hear that. No, it's so true. I always say to everybody, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. And if people were looking to learn more about your work or to find you online, where's the best place for them to come see you?
My website
virtually?
is drdivi.com. So drdivi.com.
Perfect. And are you also on social media or not so much?
Yeah, I think I am. I think so.
You think you are? That's the best answer. Maybe.
I look like I know. I think so. Yeah.
So probably drdivi.com is the best place.
Good idea. Yeah, good idea. I think I've got those accounts, but
not really active on them. Awesome.
I think we have staff that do that, but I don't know. How's that?
That's the best answer so far. Like, I really don't know. But you have a website. So,
I have a website.
Yeah, I'll put the link to that below this video. And thank you again so much.
You're welcome. So good to see you.
Enjoy your day. Yes.
You too.
Take care.
Have fun. Thank you. All right. See you, hon.
Bye.